Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with another weekly wrap up. I had some really great reads this week, a few misses, but honestly it was a really good week. So let's go ahead and quickly dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. If you are new here, thank you for watching this. If you enjoy my video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do these weekly wrap-ups every week. I go over every book that I read. So I do have playlists of all the books that I read every week, so you can check those out. But anyways, let's quickly dive in because I have 10 books to talk about. I had another great week of reading, very productive. And there are some really good ones. The first one I really struggled with. It was honestly, I think I brought it up last week on my weekly wrap up because I was like finishing it late in the night. And so I decided not to add it to that week's wrap up because I just wanted to think about it for a bit. Because it was an arc and I had to be really honest with how I felt about it. So I kind of held my review for a little bit, because I don't want to like post a negative review right away. But anyways, what is that book? This is The Infiniteness of Yesterday by Micalea Smeltzer. Now, Micalea Smeltzer, I really enjoy a lot of her books. I chose not to read one of the duets that she had because I heard really bad things about it from a booktuber I trusted, and it sounded like one that I wouldn't enjoy. And this kind of feels along those same lines a little bit. Maybe not as bad as that series. I don't even remember what it's called, so I'm sorry. I forgot to look it up, but I never read it, so I don't know. Maybe it's good. But I have really enjoyed a lot of her other books. But I was trying to actually read some more love triangle books recently because a viewer actually asked me to do a video of that. And I don't have a ton of love triangle books. And so when I signed up for this arc, it did say it was a love triangle. I knew there was going to be cheating. It's a love triangle. There's that going on. But I wanted to give it a try. But it just was really tough for me on this one because I struggled with the heroine and all her choices. So what is this about? This is about Spencer and Harlow, and then I think Jameson, I think that's what his name was. Yes, Jameson, sorry. So Harlow and Spencer were high school sweethearts. They fell in love and, you know, things fell apart with their marriage. And I don't know, wait, they weren't even married. They were just living together, I believe. So things fell apart with them and they are no longer together, but they share a child. So they're still in each other's lives. And then now in the current timeline, we have her she has been in a steady relationship with Jameson for a few years. And Jameson is like a perfect boyfriend. He's amazing. He's supportive. He's not jealous of her and like Spencer in any way, which he definitely you would think he would have like insecurities because Harlow's ex, Spencer, is basically an Hollywood star. He hit it big. He started modeling and then he turned that into acting. And now he's the next big thing. He's a huge celebrity. And that is kind of one of the problems Harlow has is because she doesn't really like being in the limelight. She doesn't like the whole celebrity thing. But he did all that to take care of her and their daughter because they did end up getting pregnant. They had a teenage pregnancy at like 17. So really like they had to struggle pretty hard and try to make it. Luckily, you know, her parents are really helpful, very part of their lives. And, but now like things fell apart with them and you kind of have two timelines in this book where it's the current timeline where she is with Jameson and her and Spencer are co-parenting together. He's a really active dad. He's very involved in his daughter's life. But he is still in love with Harlow and wants to be with her. And she is like so shut off, like, no, that's never going to happen. In this timeline, he's like trying to kind of spend more time with her, saying, you know, we're not really close anymore. We need to be more friendly for our daughter. And so they're kind of spending some time together, which is not great for her current relationship because he's still in love with her and she's still in love with him, but doesn't acknowledge she's in love with him. She's very in denial and it's frustrating. And then we have the past and it's all told from Spencer's POV. So the current timeline's in Harlow's. We don't get Jameson's POV. So that should already tell you like what's going on here, you know, in a book. It already kind of gives things a twist here. And so you get to see how amazing Spencer is. He's such a good father. He's so in love with her. He had to really suck it up. And, you know, he wasn't in college anymore. He had to like model and work. And then he eventually became a star and to support her and his kid. But she basically ended things. And I didn't really support her reasons for ending things. And then she because at one point she explains, we figure out she ended things because she didn't want to end up with her high school sweetheart. She needed to explore her options and date other people. And really, she didn't do a bunch of dating. She met Jameson, got into another relationship, and was in like a 3-year relationship with him. But then she still loves Spencer. And then you kind of have broken up this home where the daughter is split between you two when you guys actually still love each other. So it was just kind of like I couldn't get behind her actions, especially when you see how amazing Spencer is. And then Jameson is amazing too, so you feel bad for him because eventually we're going to get to the point where they like kiss and they're sharing feelings again, her and Spencer, and she's dishonest with Jameson about it. There is one point, sorry, I'm kind of giving things away here. There was one point where she does fess up to him about it. And there is a clear point in this book that like Jameson's like, should I step back? Like, do you want to be with him? Like, should I step back? And she's like, no, it was a one-time thing. It'll never happen again. She's in such denial and like lying to herself and lying to everybody else. But that was the point where she should have said, yeah, I need to think things through instead of continuing these feelings, this emotional cheating, and then ends up cheating. So I just couldn't get behind her, and I didn't understand why she ended things with Spencer and didn't even try to work it out. I just couldn't get behind her as a character. And we spend this whole book in this angsty, like her not knowing what she wants, like, you know, just constantly ping-ponging between these guys. And then the guy she chooses is at like the very end of the book. So you basically get an epilogue of them together. And it didn't work for me. So I didn't love this. I do think her writing was good. I loved Spencer. I loved Jameson. You know, at some points you could empathize with her, but I just couldn't fully do it because of her choices. And I don't know. She didn't work for me as a heroine. She was very deeply flawed, which is realistic. They're all flawed characters. But like with Kandi Steiner's love triangle, they were all flawed, but their choices, you could see the situation that heroine was in. This heroine, I just couldn't get behind her choices. So I ended up sitting with a 3-star for this. It was an arc, you know, so I kind of rounded it up to 3. It might have been like a 2.5 star for me because it was just a struggle for me to get through. And then it was 2 chilies. Okay, so talking about Kandi Steiner's love triangle that I read the 3rd book, which is the book about the character she doesn't pick in that love triangle duet. So this kind of may give it away. So I think I'm not going to say the name of the character in case you haven't read those 2. I don't want to spoil the 3rd one for you. So, and spoil that duet for you. So I won't say the name of the hero for this book, but basically, God, I can't even say like the full plot because it'll give things away if you read that duet. I don't know. I guess I'll just be kind of vague on this, or consider this spoilers if you don't want to know anything about that duet or this 3rd book. Maybe just skip to the next book. I'll just put it that way so I can give some details here. Okay. So in this, we have our hero who was not chosen for that love triangle. And he's pretty devastated. He was so in love with that heroine. And, he now is left alone and kind of trying to find what he needs to do in his life. And he still sees her all the time. So it's very tough for him. It's really hard to not give spoilers by saying anything, but I think I'm just going to say the stuff about the book because I can't really explain this and then not spoil it. So, okay. Sorry, this is crazy. I don't know how to go about reviewing this one with you guys. But basically, he is a piano teacher. He was a master at the piano. And in this, we have Sarah. And she actually was going to, I think, Juilliard. I can't remember if that's where she was going. Some school that she was going to, and she had been assaulted by her piano teacher, and she actually spoke out about it, but nobody did anything. Nobody believed her, and so she has a lot of PTSD and anger, and she actually had an injury to her hand, I think, too. So she is trying to get back in love with the piano again because that really hurt her what happened. And so she wants to study with our hero. And so he actually kind of becomes her teacher and kind of guides her through this, and is because her goal is to, play, solos and be a big time pianist. And so they end up forming this really big bond and working together, and she's kind of growing back in love with her piano and playing again, and they share this love for music. And so they start to fall for each other. So that's kind of the main gist of what this is. This didn't fully work for me for a few reasons because I didn't fully feel their chemistry like I did with him and the heroine from the duet. I didn't really connect to it as much. And I also didn't like how they portrayed the heroine from the duet in this because she kept kind of trying to be his friend, inserting herself in his life. And I just don't think she would have done that after all the trauma and hurt feelings and devastation from their love triangle situation falling apart and everything. I don't think she would do that because it's insensitive to the hero, So I didn't love that because it kind of ruined that character a little bit for me, and I felt like it was out of character for her to act like that. But this does have some triggers for the sexual assault and PTSD and, a lot of grief and loss that the hero has gone through. So I didn't hate it. It didn't blow me away, and it didn't really stand up to the duet for me. So I ended up giving that one 3.5 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so then I finally read The Lone Wolf's Rejected Mate. This is by Kate C. Wells. This is the 5 packs series. This is book number 3. I have had this on my TBR for, I think, 2 years, and I still never get to it. And I always love reading shifter romances or werewolf romances or that type of stuff during, the fall season for some reason. So I really wanted to get to this finally, and I'm so glad I did. I loved this book. It was so angsty and emotional, and Kate Wells just does such a good job with these rejected mate situations. But with this one, it actually was a valid reason that the hero rejected his mate, and it just made it more angsty and emotional, and you felt for the hero a lot more than I think on the previous 2. So this one I think is my favorite in the series. I still love the first one because it was my first rejected mate type of story that I read, and so I still do love it. But this one is between Darag and Mari, and it might be Mary, but it's spelled Mari, so I always said Mari. I don't know if that's right. But they are fated mates. They're mates. And she is part of the group of lone wolf chicks, the unmated chicks that were, kind of in their own cabin. She's friends with the heroine from the first one. Actually, the heroine from the first book saved her pretty much because her father thought that her mother, I think the mother got assaulted by the hero from the first one, his dad, who was like the alpha of the pack. And so her father like went moon crazy and was like tried to kill her because she wasn't his child. And then her mother literally just like jumped as a wolf off a cliff. So, I mean, Mari's had it hard. She's had it really hard. And so she's more of like the girly girl out of the group. And, you know, one day she's out, like, I think they were working, I don't know what they were working on, but they're outside working on something. And she sees Dara at like the old crone witch, you know, chick's place. And she immediately starts to realize, like, she's scenting him. She's, like, drawn to him. And she soon realizes he's her mate. But he is, like, the lone wolf. He doesn't live with the pack. He lives, like, on his own, secluded in, like, this rundown, shitty-ass cabin. And he comes in from time to time. He helps hunt for the pack and all of that. And so she tries to, like, approach him. She goes to his, like, cabin at one point. And he's in his wolf, and the wolf is like losing it. Like he's like, oh, he wasn't in his wolf then at that point. Sorry. The wolf inside him was losing it when she visits him. So he's like, you can't come out here. You shouldn't be out here. And he walks her back into like the group area. And then she starts to go and heat at another time, and he realizes it. So he actually takes her to one of the like empty cabins. And she sets up her little like nest thing, her whatever, I forget what they call it, and they're gonna mate and all of that. But it's a horrible experience for her because she's like thinking this cabin, he's gonna move into this cabin because his other cabin was like really threadbare. Like she's like, how am I gonna live out here? I need plumbing, I need electricity. And she's like a girly girl, and he's definitely roughing it. And so she's thinking he got this place for her. And then when they start to have sex, you know, they knot, because they are a wolf, you know, they'll knot and then go inside, you know, the woman. And he pulls out, and that's like really hard for them to even do. And he doesn't come in her. And so she feels like so just disgusting, like betrayed, like dirty, like it just isn't a good feeling. And he basically leaves her there. And so that was really traumatizing for her. And she decides to go confront him. And that's when he's in his wolf form, and his wolf tries to kill her. So she gets wounded in this, and that basically makes it where she's like done, you know, he basically has rejected her as a mate. And, you know, you can see why. He has a wolf that's kind of out of control, that he can't really fully trust, and he thinks his wolf will kill her, that she's not safe with him. And so, you know, he stays away for a few years. You know, he just comes and provides her with like meat, and she doesn't talk to him. And, you know, he wants to be with her, but he knows it's too dangerous with his wolf. And then we have a suspense element come in, because there is this group of humans that are kind of kidnapping wolves and doing stuff. And so that ends up bringing a whole other suspenseful element to this that was really exciting and interesting. And I won't give any of that away, but I just loved this so much. I loved both these characters. They're so strong. And Dara was like such a tortured hero, you know, and he just wants to be with his mate, but he's so scared that his wolf is uncontrollable. And so how they work this out in the end was really interesting, and I just really loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars and 2.5 chilies. I love this series, so I need to continue because I love it. So I'm so glad I finally finished that one. Okay, so then I had an ALC. I listened to Before Now by CJ Blaine. This is a rock star romance. I think it's a start of the series, but I didn't see the series name listed, so I'm not positive. But this is my first book by this author, and I really was impressed. I was completely hooked from the start. It's a fantastic audiobook. This is between Foster and Remy, and Foster goes by his like stage name, Adams North. Is a rock star. He's the lead singer of a band, and him and Remy actually met not knowing who each other was through like an app. And they really connected. They were like falling in love through this app, never seeing each other's faces, just connecting on like a deeper level. But things turned bad, and she actually ends up ghosting him. And so they never met, and it kind of fell apart. Now, Remy is actually a documentarian. She is going to be the director of this documentary for this rock band. And so when she shows up, she sees Foster. She never met him, but he saw her face because they had decided to switch photos at one point, but things went bad on her end that she never, like, she shared hers, but she never saw his. And so he actually recognizes her and is livid. He's devastated. He is heartbroken from how she completely abandoned him and all this stuff from their history. So, he lets her know he knows who she is and all of that. So it becomes very uncomfortable, but she is the director. She's going to be on tour with them doing this documentary, and, they're going to be in forced proximity. And so things heat up pretty quickly, and they kind of have to go through their past and what happened. There is a lot of tragic stuff that happened from her background because her mom was a drug addict and would have some shady characters in her life. And like this stepdad situation she had, he was like the chief of police or something like that, but he beat them, and he was like abusive and kind of scary. And so there's stuff that goes on with that in the past. So this does have flashbacks to the past of like when they were first communicating, and so you can see what happened with her, and then obviously the current timeline. So I thought that flashbacks actually worked really well. Usually I'm not a big fan of flashbacks, but these really helped show their like deeper connection and like how they have such this amazing chemistry, and they were like already in love without ever like meeting each other. And so I really loved this one. So this was another top rock star romance for me. I've been really lucky getting some really good rock star romances lately, because I usually thought like I'm just not the rock star chick because I hate like the drug abuse and sluttiness and like hooking up with random girls. But that wasn't in this like really at all. So I really appreciated it. So this one actually had duet narration by Christian Fox and MK Blackwood. And MK Blackwood, I'm not totally familiar. I don't know if that's maybe a different name for her or what, but this narrator really I've listened to in a couple audiobooks recently, and she's really blown me away. So I really like her. And then actually Christian Fox does some singing in it, I think. So that was great. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. And it was a fantastic rock star, second chance type of romance, a good found family, all of that in here. Okay, so then I have actually been kind of wanting to read more from Tessa Hale. I fell in love with her like Dragon Ember, whatever, Twilight and Embers. I always forget the name of it, but it's her Dragon Shifter series. And I read her most recent one, which was a Wolf Shifter. So I wanted to go back and read more from her. So I picked up The Lost Elemental. This is the first book in the Royals of Kingwood Academy series. And this is another Why Choose, I think it's a trilogy series, whatever. And this one was interesting because I needed a little bit more world building, but she did give enough that I understood what was going on. But it's more of like these people or different kind of beings that have these elemental powers. So they use the elements and they have these different powers. And in the beginning of this, we have Aura, and she is a human, doesn't think she has any powers. And it kind of remind me of Divergent, where they like kind of do this testing with you to see where you land or what your affinity is type of thing. And so they do a testing with her, and she's like off the charts and actually does have elemental power. And somebody had done like a binding to like hide it. And so there's this mystery. She doesn't know who her father is. And so they're thinking, he must be somebody of great power or something. So when they test her, they realize she has a lot of power. So they end up having her go to the Kingwood Academy. And so she's with all these where they're not humans, they're like elemental. I don't know what they're really called, but it's not like they're just regular humans, but they have these powers. And, she ends up going and she builds a connection with our guys. So we have Phoenix, Kai, Atlas, and Riven. And they all each have like that. They're all royals in like, they're going to have a kingdom of those elemental things. So like one of them is fire, earth, air, all of that. So water. So they each have one of those. And now there was these previous beings that like, I can't remember what they were called, but they had where they had all of them, but they were like killed off. So in this, she is like a lot of power that Riven is like the only guy that basically kind of treats her like crap, doesn't want her around his friends because she's dangerous. Because if she doesn't know how to control this, she could combust and hurt a lot of people and cause issues. So he's more concerned about that. But the guys are all smitten with her and they want to help her train and learn her powers. She's dealing with a mean girl situation at the academy. So this is very like, you know, school, academia kind of setting. And that's kind of the setup for this first one. And she's slowly building relationship with each of the guys. Riven is like fighting it. That's kind of like a typical thing with Tessa Hale's White Shoes. I feel like there's always like the multiple guys and then there's like the one guy that doesn't want her to be his mate and is like fighting it. So, but I don't care. I still like it. So I thought this was a really good introduction to this world, this series. I just want a little bit more world building of like the history and everything. So hopefully that'll come in the next couple books. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It really doesn't have a lot of spice, maybe one chili. There's not much. There is one like sex scene, but it's very almost like, it's very non-descriptive, just kind of blam bam. I had to rewind, like, did they just have sex? Like, so not much spice in it, but it was great. A good time. Okay, so the next one that I read was, oh, I love this book so much. Okay, so I am on the Bella Matthews ARC team, which I'm very lucky to be on that. And this is her new holiday novella. So this is Mistletoe Meet Cute. And this is set in the Croydon Hills series. So if you know the Croydon Hills, she's got the original books like of the parents and then the second generation, which those are the ones that I've been reading. I want to go back. I think my goal next year is to go through her whole backlist and read all the parents' books because she has this great, it's almost like a small town, but like sports, found family. It's just this really big, you know, group of people that are very interconnected. So in this, she actually, I don't think they've been introduced before. I could be wrong because I've only read most of her second generation, but she introduces a new family and that's our heroine's family, Holly. So this is Camden and Holly is actually a daughter of like her parents own this winery. That's a big winery locally. And they have like, you know, I think like a restaurant and inn. It's like the whole stay. And they do a lot of special stuff for like the holidays. And Holly loves the holidays. She was born, I think on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, one of those. And so she is just full of holiday spirit. And she has a meet cute with Camden. And Camden is actually the brother of the heroine from Teasing. So if you read Teasing, his sister was the one that moved in next door to, I think it was Maverick, if I'm remembering correctly, Maddox. One of the Beneventis, I think. Sorry, it's hard to remember with all her books. But he is a football player. He's on the same team with his sister's, you know, boyfriend. And he actually just became a single dad. He had no idea. The woman just kind of dropped off the baby with him. So he's got a 4-month-old. And so he has a baby. He's kind of struggling having somebody watch his baby for his football season and everything. And he's kind of picky. And Holly actually went to school for, like, she got a master's in child care, whatever, childhood development. But she's having a hard time getting a job and she doesn't really want to work on the winery and deal with like their handsy Santa that always like gropes the girls and is like, you know, an issue. And so her brother actually offers her up to be a nanny for Camden. So she actually moves in with him and is kind of staying with him for like the holidays and the season, and he's kind of a Grinch, doesn't have any decorations. So she's like, you can't do this. This is your child's like first Christmas. Like, we need to decorate. So she brings all this holiday cheer into his life, and they are just so attracted to each other and this forced proximity and just really liking each other. But again, she didn't want to go there because she's his nanny, and but I mean, it's not long term, so there's really no reason they shouldn't get together. So they end up falling in love with each other, and it's just super, super cute. This is very low angst, cute holiday novella. Like, it's a good time. It gives you all those Hallmark holiday vibes, and I loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars and 2.5 chilies, and it was so much fun. Okay, so I have actually been trying to read more of Kristen Proby's newest series because I got an ALC for, I think, the 3rd book, and then I really loved it. So I went back and I read the 1st book. Now I read the 2nd book. So that's When We Break. This is the 2nd book in the Blackwells of Montana series. This is such a cute, small town, super cute family. Like, I just love these books. They're pretty low angst and just good, sweet, solid romances. So this one is between Beckett and Skyla. And Skyla is actually Irish, and she is a ballerina, but she's kind of retired. She's ended her career. She kind of had an injury, and she just can't fully dance at the same level anymore. She's also kind of trying to get away because she has a stalker. And so she had been out to their area in Montana and just fell in love with it. So she decides to move out there. And so she moves out there, becomes friends with she's good friends with the girl group. And she ends up running into Beckett, and he is just immediately wants her and asks her out, but she says no at first because of her stalker situation, and she just doesn't think she can be in a relationship. And he's completely respectable, understands she doesn't want to date, but that doesn't last long. She ends up deciding to go out with him, and they just have this super sweet romance. I loved it because she told him her history and her stalker situation right away. So she told him everything. They really open up to each other. He kind of runs their ranch, the cow farm type of situation. And he's just so sweet, and he wants to protect her and all of that. It also introduced her brother, who ends up being the hero from the 3rd book that I loved. So it was great seeing him again and kind of how he was introduced. And it was hinted in this book of what ended up being the romance in the 3rd book. So I really love this one. It does have the stalker element, so there is an issue there. She does have this amazing dog that she has as she didn't want to get those ones that are trained to only protect, but also be kind of her pet. So it's her dog to help be protective of her, but also her pet. And it's just really cute. So there is a suspense element with the stalker, but this was a great time. So the content warning, I will mention there is harm of an animal, but trust me, the animal's okay. He's going to be fine. But I just want to bring that up because that's one of my biggest triggers. So I don't want that to shock you or anything. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3.5 chilies. I think I've given every book 5 stars in this series. I think I have. I really loved it. So if you haven't picked up this series, I highly recommend it. It is very cute. The audiobooks are great. So it was a good time. Okay, so then I had another ALC, and this was The Moments You Miss by May Roberts. This is actually a debut author. This is the 1st book in the Whispering series. This is her 1st book. It's very dark. It's a very dark romance. It leaves off on a cliffhanger that left me I want the next one. But I don't know how to explain this because I don't want to give anything away. I think it's best to kind of go in blind like I did. And because this one has a lot of twists, turns, reveals, all of that, but I'll kind of give you the basics. So in this, we have Cameron and Layla, and they actually became friends when they were teens. They were in kind of a, group therapy, a therapy group, whatever I'm trying to say, together after their like traumatic events in their life. So she actually witnessed her parents getting murdered by the Whispering Killer, which is like a serial killer. And so she was left alive and had a lot of trauma from that. And so she was in that therapy group with him, and he has a pretty abusive home life. His father would beat him a lot, and there's some even darker stuff about his family life that gets revealed. And so they become friends, but they lose touch, and it's like years later that they run into each other again as adults, and they kind of fall into a relationship. So they start to really kind of fall for each other, but there are darker elements at play. He may have kind of stalked her a little bit because he became obsessed with her and worried about her, but she also has another stalker. And we also have the Whispering Killer like coming back and doing things. So this is really hard to explain because I don't want to reveal anything, but it had my mind. It was a mind F. It is crazy. It's a wild ride. It's kind of like a very psychological type of thriller type of thing. So I was very intrigued by this being this author's first go. There are some issues with some stuff, but honestly, I flew through this in one sitting. It's not too long. It's less than 300 pages. And the audiobook had dual narration by Gabriel Michael and Lila Winters, and it was pretty intense. They did a good job bringing like that extra suspense element. I will say there's so many content warnings in this, so I'm not even going to bring them up. Just they do list them at the beginning, and I liked it because they listed the content warnings at the beginning of the audiobook. I think that's really important with audiobooks. A lot of times that gets missed. But there's a lot of gore, torture, violence, because we do have a serial killer and some crazy shit going on. But it does leave us on a cliffhanger where we don't know what the hell is going on here. We don't know who the killer is. I have suspicions, and there's somebody that I'm like feel is very shady, but I won't say. But anyways, sorry, that's me kind of being vague, but it was a pretty good, I think a decent first book for an author. So if you are interested, definitely go check that out. I gave it 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Just be prepared that there is a cliffhanger, and I don't know when the second book is coming out. So there's that. Okay, so then I'll briefly mention this because it is my Immortals After Dark book that I read, which was Shadow's Seduction. This is the 16th book in the Immortals After Dark series. Also the second book in the Dacian series, basically. It's like the Dacians, which are like the vampires and everything that are like, they're kind of like a different than like the main vampires. They're a different type of species, whatever. Kind of related to Lothair. Lothair ends up being, he's part Dacian, and he ends up being kind of like their king. But anyways, this is about Mercio, who is a Dacian vampire, and Caspian. And Shadow's Seduction. Shadow's, I forgot what it was called. Anyways, the first Shadows book is the one that I didn't love because the heroine in that was like in love with Caspian, who was like her best friend, and he always just saw her as a sister, and it just was not my favorite in the series. So I honestly wasn't looking that forward to this one as much. It is shorter. It is less than 300 pages. But I've been enjoying the audiobook, so I ended up using a credit for this, and I kind of wish I didn't. I used a credit on the other Shadow one, and it wasn't good either to me. But yeah, so this is actually an MM romance, which is kind of cool because I hadn't seen Kresley do that. That's like for her first one in this series. But this is following Caspian and like Mercio, who is kind of a slutty vampire and is like really into Caspian, and Caspian is like demon and all of that. And so yeah, I don't even know what to say because I mean, I don't want to say too much about it because I want you to watch my live show when it happens. But this just didn't really hit the same spot, especially after reading Sweet Ruin, which was a 6-star read for me and so plot heavy and everything coming to head. And this just didn't really feel like it added a lot to the story. I see where it's setting up some stuff for the future, so that's interesting. But I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not going to give my rating here. You'll have to watch my live show to see what my rating is, and we'll see if Helen likes it, because Helen will be on that live show. But yeah, so read that one. Okay. So then I had an arc of The End Zone by Bianca Borell. This is the second book in the Playing for Keeps series. I didn't read the first one. I thought this is the first book of the series when I signed up for it. I hadn't realized she actually had done like sports romance before, because I read Bianca's like mafia romance. But this one, you can read the second one without reading the first one. It does heavily have that couple in here. And I don't know, I might have been annoyed if I read the first one and read this, because that couple starts to have like a rocky relationship and like split during part of this book. And that might kind of irritate you if you read a book about a couple getting their HEA and then they're having tough times. I don't know. Maybe it would irritate me. Maybe it'll be okay though. I don't know. But anyways, this is a football romance. This is kind of a like, it's very insta-lovey, but let me tell you, it's a slow burn with what we go through with this couple, because in this we have Ian and Lily, and Ian is actually the star quarterback of the Sharks football team in San Diego. If you know about me, I actually live in San Diego, so I was excited that my city was actually featured, but I don't think Bianca Borell knows a lot about San Diego, because it wasn't like the key things that you usually would mention in San Diego weren't really brought up. And our Chargers left us to go to LA, which is still very angering for me, but I'm still upset by that, because we suffered as Charger fans for years, being loyal fans, and then like Dean Spanos just picks it up and moves it to LA. Anyway, sorry, this isn't going to be a rant about the Chargers, but yeah. So I was excited to have my city mentioned, but she's actually, when I read the back, she's actually from Germany. So I don't know if she knows a lot or has really visited a lot of San Diego. So it wasn't really featured the way I wanted it to be featured. But anyways, sorry, I'm getting on tangents, but so anyways, he is a star quarterback, and he runs into a woman that basically is the one that got away. He had a one-night stand with Lily, like I think it was 4 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think it was 4 years, sorry. But he like thought she is the one. He was smitten. They spent this amazing night together. He was like all in. And then when he goes back, because he had to go to like leave for like a practice or something, he comes back and there was a note on the door basically saying, sorry, I can't be with you, or I can't do this. And so he was heartbroken, and it turned out she was only there visiting for like a couple days with her friend. So she didn't even live there or anything at the time. So anyways, so now he runs into her because she ends up being his next door neighbor. And he's so pissed off and he acts like he doesn't know her at first, because he was hurt by how she treated him. And so that really hurt her. But then he kind of tells her, he eventually lets it, like, yeah, I know who you are. But he wants to know, like, why did you do that? Like, and she has to kind of fess up that she realized who he really was, and she was never going to be in a relationship with a football player and all of that. And football is his life, his passion. He's really worked his way up in that last 4 years. And now he's had like 2 Super Bowl rings. He's like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And so, her being next door is just not good for his focus. And he's like obsessed with her. But she's basically adamant that they can't be together, because she knows his coach is her dad. And her dad never wants her to be involved with players. He's kind of like a hard ass about it. And she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to disappoint her father. And her father was never around. Her parents split up because of football. So that's kind of why she didn't want to be in a relationship. But so they basically decide to be friends, but this friendship is like a super codependent, really close friendship. And they are basically living like they're in a relationship. They cook for each other. They sleep in the same bed. They like hang out all the time. So the friendship is a really like connected friendship, and they're both pining after each other, but she's just like adamant that she can't be with him because of her dad. And then when he finds out who her dad really is, he's like, oh shit, you know. So they basically have this long friendship of like mutual pining. So it is a slow burn. Even though it started out with a one night stand, they are not going there sexually with each other until they go on like a vacation. He takes her to Bali for like 10 days. And so they decide to kind of hook up there. And then when they get back, they're just going to be friends, which we know that never freaking works. So he's smitten, thinking it's finally going to happen. And when they get back, she's like, we're just friends. So it's very frustrating. I didn't know how I wanted to rate this because I really did enjoy it. I loved the hero. He is so romantic, so swoon worthy. This trip to Bali, I would have been like, yeah, I'm yours. Fuck my dad. I don't care. We're together. Like he would have candlelight dinners like on the beach. He does like all these sweet things for her. Like their friendship is really beautiful. So the friendship part and how dependent and like helpful and supportive they were of each other, because he goes through some really tough times when his best friend gets injured and can't play football anymore. That's like a whole side plot. And that's like the character from the first book. She's there for him. Like it's just a very beautiful relationship. So while I love that, and I almost wanted to give it 4.5 stars, the length of time of how long they put off, like when they get back, they're like friends again, or like not friends, and then they become friends again just so they can be in each other's life. It's brutal. Like I'm just like telling this girl, come on, just be with him. So that part was kind of tough, but I really loved the characters. I love the hero so much. And so, you know, I wanted to give it more, but honestly, just for that back and forth constantness with the heroine, like not doing it. And this takes place, I think, between like 1.5 to 2 years. So it's a long length of time of them going through this. And it's a lot of suffering when you know they're like basically in a relationship. They're just saying they're friends. So that's the tough part of it. So I ended up settling on 4 stars because I still did really enjoy it. It was a solid read. I love the hero. I just wish they would have like sucked it up earlier and been together. But anyways. So 4 stars and 3 chilies because their spicy scenes were hot. They were more emotional because they've been friends. That's what I did enjoy, is like they've been friends and in love with each other for like a year. So it's like them hooking up was like more emotional when they finally do it. So anyways, there's that. Okay, the last book that I had was an ALC of Chasing Love by Piper Rayne. This is the 5th book in the the Plain Daisy Ranch series, and I loved the previous book so much, so I was so excited to get to this one. This one was a little tougher for me. I still really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna tell you straight out of the gate, I'm not gonna hide anything, why I had some difficulties with this, and that is because there is a secret baby situation here. So if you love Secret Baby, I think you'll love this, but this one was tough for me because I don't really love Secret Baby unless it's like mafia or like there's really good valid reasons for not telling the father that he had a baby. And I just didn't buy into these reasons in this one. But it was still cute and I still really enjoyed all the characters. So what the setup of this is we have Bennett Owens and Delaney. And Bennett and Delaney basically fell in love. They were high school sweethearts, but she had to move away. And so they kind of like, obviously that's not going to work. You're just teenagers, high school sweethearts. But she ends up coming in contact with him years later, and they're working together and everything. And he actually had gotten married and was splitting up with his wife because she had cheated on him. And so they kind of start this relationship because he's separated, going to divorce the wife. So I didn't really consider that cheating. But they end up kind of like falling for each other and having a relationship. But then his ex actually gets pregnant. So the ex kind of shows up and is total mean girl and to her. And so, you know, she's like, if he wants to go with me, just let him go, you know? And so he ends up choosing to go back with his wife, which devastated her. And then later on, she realizes she's pregnant. And she decides not to tell him because he went with his wife, and she doesn't want to ruin their family and him and his daughter situation there or whatever. But to me, I don't care. That's kind of petty. It was a breakup. He didn't know you were pregnant. He went to go be a good father and be there for his daughter, and that's why he gave the marriage a second chance. So he deserved a phone call of him letting him know he has another baby, basically. And she doesn't. And she ends up getting married to a man. He knows immediately that this baby isn't his, so that's not a hidden thing or anything. But this guy actually gets arrested. I think it was like drug trafficking or something really shady. I can't remember. And so her life kind of fell apart. So she has come back to their small town, and she ends up getting a job working for them. And so she's working with him. And then her daughter and his daughter end up becoming best friends. So he's like wants to be with her. His wife had died in childbirth, so that ended, you know, like, so he's been alone this whole time, and he's never like stopped loving her. And so he wants to pursue her, but it's like now she has this big secret and she doesn't want to tell him. And she doesn't want him to see her daughter because then he'll know, because it looks so much like his daughter. So there's that. So I thought it was cute, but it was messy. Like, it was messy. You know, of course, when he finds out, he's going to be pissed. Like, you hid a child from him. And I didn't really think she had valid reasons to hide that child. And then also, like, his child was raised by another man that ended up not being a good man, you know? So I couldn't fully get behind that, but I did like how they were able to work through things. His family also wasn't even mad at her at all, which I felt was really unrealistic. Like, his mom and sisters were totally fine and supported her. And I just felt like that was like unrealistic. You know, his family would be pissed that they had this hidden child. So I don't know. Like, it was cute to have the mother supporting her and welcoming her in the fold and stuff. So it wouldn't be like an added conflict. So that was cute in that way. But I don't know. I just didn't fully support the heroine for her choices, and then how she wasn't telling him right away when she got to town. So I still love that. I still finished this on like one day. It was a great narration. Oh, I forgot to write who narrated it. I'm sorry, but it had duet narration. Ooh, I forgot to write it down. Sorry. Actually, I think I have it written down somewhere else. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So it had duet narration by J.F. Harding and Aaron Mallon, and they're always great. So it was a good audiobook. So I decided to give this 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. All right, so those were all my books this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, hype the video if you can. I don't know if that does anything, but I'm trying to do that for my other booktubers when I watch their videos. So try that. We'll see if it helps my algorithm. I have no idea. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you sticking with me and watching my weekly wrap-ups. I know they can be long and drawn out. And I will see you guys on the next one.